Hello, my name is Charlie Sampson. The topic I'm arguing today is, should the United States have or have not went to war with Iran? And the position I'll be arguing is that no, the United States should not have went to war with Iran. And I won't even consider the ideological or the moral perspectives to this debate. I'm just going to look at this from the perspective of United States national security interest, which we could say removing the regime, the Iranian regime, ending their nuclear program, looking at this debate through the lens of the United States security interest, and whether it was in our best interest for achieving our national security goals. And I would argue that it's not, and that we underestimated Iran, the strength of their regime, their military capabilities, the strength of our alliances, and many other factors. Now, in recent years, Iran has suffered a lot of humiliating defeats through their proxies. Bashar al-Assad is out of power. Hamas and Hezbollah have been crushed. I mean, they're significantly weaker than they used to be. Even Houthi, their ability to disrupt trade in the Red Sea has been significantly reduced. And furthermore, Iran's ability, their capabilities to conduct long-range attacks against Israel and defend their proxies has been tested. And one last thing, which is very important, Iran has had many protests, and many protesters have died. So from an outside perspective, from the US-Israel perspective, Iran is very unstable, it's very weak. This would be the perfect opportunity to strike, to destroy them. And it's understandable, but I believe it's hubris and it's a bit of arrogance. And I'll give a historical example for context. At the beginning of the 20th century, the Ottoman Empire, which was a great empire at one time, very powerful, it was now considered the dying man of Europe, or the sick dog. Like, it's weak, it's collapsing, it's unstable. Italy had delivered a crushing defeat and took the Ottoman Empire's North African territories in the beginning of the 20th century. And by the time World War I came about, the Ottoman Empire had joined the Central Powers, and the Triple Entente and a coalition, like a fleet under the command of Winston Churchill, had the idea to take the navy, force their way through the Dardanelles Strait, bomb Istanbul, and knock the Ottoman Empire out of the war. So a fleet led by Winston Churchill arrived at the Dardanelles Strait near a city called Çanakkale, which I lived for about 2 years, by the way. They arrived at the strait, and they discovered that the Ottoman Empire's naval defenses were actually much more elaborate and advanced than they assumed. So Winston Churchill, he had the misguided idea to land their ground forces on the Gallipoli Peninsula and launch a land invasion to knock out the defenses, so then the Navy could go through and bomb Istanbul, knock the Ottoman Empire out of the war. Well, this turned out to be a disastrous campaign in which the British and French and their allies, India, Australia, New Zealand, were defeated. But ultimately, the Ottoman Empire was on the losing side of World War I, and it was partitioned into various zones of control by the European powers, the Triple Entente, and a large portion of the former Ottoman Empire, and especially in Anatolia, was given to Greece. Once again, the Triple Entente underestimated the Turkish forces, which staged a revolution and pushed out the Greek army backed by the British and the Italians and other powers, and they also defeated the French army, which was much larger and more technologically advanced in the east. So this is just an example of how, powerful forces, like they become arrogant and they develop hubris and they start to make very misguided decisions. And I believe that's what's happening with Iran. Iran is attacking our allies in the region, Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain. And what we're finding is that the willpower of our allies to continue this war is not as strong as ours, yet we depend on these alliances to conduct our operations and inflict force on the Iranian regime. So our alliances were not strong enough for this war. And we've had to abandon many bases. So our defenses were not adequate to begin this campaign. And then what we're seeing, like the biggest consequence of this war, is that Iran has shut down the Strait of Hormuz and has disrupted world trade. Now there's a lot of international pressure from even our greatest allies to end this war because we don't want our economies to collapse. So when you look at all the factors, I think just objectively, we can all say this war isn't probably going how it was envisioned or how we hoped. And it was very misguided. Now, the second argument I would make was going to war with Iran even the best way to achieve our national security objectives? And I disagree. Under the Obama administration, we formed a deal with Iran to have inspectors in their country and to check their weapons to make sure they don't develop, or their nuclear facilities, to ensure that they don't develop nuclear weapons. And in my opinion, this was a very good approach for solving the issue. And in return, we lifted sanctions on Iran. So it was a mutually beneficial arrangement. And I believe perhaps another mutually beneficial arrangement could have been formed, especially since Iran was much weaker, having lost most of its proxies and being so unstable from the protest. We had a really good position to start. Sorry, I reached my recording space limit, so it stopped recording automatically, but picking up where I left off. Before this war began, the United States had a very good bargaining position because Iran was much weaker than it used to be. But now that the war is ongoing, our bargaining position with Iran is worse than ever because they've demonstrated the capability to control the Strait of Hormuz and disrupt international trade. So compared to the situation from before the war, we are much worse off now. I mean, sure, their military abilities have been reduced. Their ability to produce nuclear weapons has probably been delayed, although they're probably more motivated now than ever to have nuclear weapons so they can defend themselves, as the regime is still intact. Killing their leader did not end the regime. There's probably more hardliners than ever, actually. So for these reasons, I believe that we should not have went to war with Iran, and it was very misguided. And I hope you found my arguments compelling, and thank you.